In this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about 2025 F1 Austrian Grand Prix from the perspective of a driver, coach, and mentor. I think we were robbed in the end of a full, complete race, but I'm grateful for the racing that we did get. I'm going to explain why that was in a minute as well. A lot to talk about racecraft, driving in dirty air, tight lines. So if you're interested in what my thoughts are, definitely keep watching. Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Martin. I'm a specialist technical coach and mentor for open Formula drivers. Let's kick off with the start. We spoke about this yesterday. We said, is turn one worth fighting for? How much is it worth fighting for? Because what you don't want to do is pin yourself up against the pit wall, and then you're just going to be on borrowed time down the long second straight down to turn three. So who made that mistake? Charles Leclerc. I think he got a decent launch, but he did go for he was going for it at turn one up the inside. Lando had to cover him off. And I think Charles, he put himself in a bad position there, such that Oscar, as soon as he came through turn one, just swallowed Charles thereafter. Who I thought managed to start really well was Lando Norris. So tick, 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 from my side at least anyway. So there was a slight defensive posture from Lando. So not lining up directly straight, ever so slightly. And I think it was good because we spoke about this yesterday on what needs to happen at the start in my post-quali video. And I said, if Lando needs to come over, but get back over to the racing line as quickly as possible because you're going to need that. So I think Lando did a good job at covering off Charles, getting back to somewhat the left-hand side of the track to open up turn one, carry good speed. And then I said the story is going to continue down at turn three as well. Lando's also going to need to defend there as well. And he did that perfectly as well. So I think, like I say, Charles's decent start, but attacking into turn one cost him. What Charles should have done is just try to get across to the left-hand side, make Lando play into a really conservative tight position, and then pin him on the exit down at turn three. So I'll bring up a few pictures now and we can have a look at it together. All right, hopefully you can see that on the screen in front of you. This is the best shot that I could see, which kind of explains what I'm talking about. You've got Lando and Charles coming from the right-hand side of the track across to the left because they've been up against this wall over here, having their little skirmish, fighting for this clean piece of track here. Lando's come across and squeezed him and said, no, Charles, get lost. I'm not having it. I think what Lando's done really well is as soon as that squeeze was done, he got back over and you can see him trying to make his way back over to the left-hand side of the track. And he does just manage to get in a decent position to take turn one, this right-hander. Charles, unfortunately, doesn't. You see, he's got a lot of work to get this Ferrari from that position over to where it should be, which is the curb on the left-hand side up against this 50 board over here. So who's got the best seat in the house out of the top three? Oscar Piastri. He's got the perfect position. Not only does he easily grab Charles on the exit, but he can then start to attack Lando as well. So everything we spoke about in the live stream yesterday coming true. I think Lando, it was tricky. He was managing a lot of balls. He was managing, he was juggling a lot of balls here. He was managing Leclerc's attack at the inside, trying to manage his line into turn one. Then he was managing Oscar's attack down at turn three. So I think Lando handled that very well, very professionally. No mistakes, no lockups. Got it done and converted pole position into race lead. Here's another shot of turn three this time. So this is what we're talking about. Lando did really well to take the defensive position, take the inside, and again, just push things another corner down. So by taking the defense into turn one, he was under attack into turn three. By taking a defensive posture into turn three, he was then under attack into turn four. He can then defend into turn four. And the reason you can get away with just kicking the can down the road is because there's no DRS on the first lap. So this is Lando defending into turn three on the opening lap. I thought he did this really well. So again, tick and hats off for that. Just as we talk about the start, we need to talk about Antonelli and Max Verstappen. I think it was obviously a shame for Max. That's kind of what can happen when you qualify a P7. You know, you're in the melee, as it were, and all that stuff sort of P5 to P15 is like, there's a lot of pressure in there. So if something does go wrong, you can get caught up. Max will be disappointed with his qualifying, I think, looking back. You know, he'll be thinking like, that's what happens when you qualify back there. I'll be interested to hear what he has to say and if he uses those words in his post-race interview. But anyway, from Kimi Antonelli's side, obviously it was 100% his fault. I think he just misread and misjudged the whole situation. He was planning to pull out from one car and then brake on the inside, but then he found another car, the V carb, and that just pretty much took away all the downforce from the front of the car. He had to go a next step, and then it was pretty much too late. So he broke too late, found himself too close to other cars Then he said he locked rears and locked fronts as well. So it was a bit of a disaster. Probably wouldn't hang Kimi for that one. Rookie mistake. You know, these things happen. Like sometimes you just, yeah, like sometimes you just got to go through these phases to be able to learn. And hopefully he does exactly that. Now the restart, we spoke about this in the live stream as well. I'll pull you guys over to the track map once again. We spoke about if there is a safety car, then where should Lando kick it off? And I said, look, this is one of the easiest tracks in order to kick off the restart. You can pretty much do it anywhere from here you can go and you should be fine. You know, you'll aero wash the other car through 9 and 10. As long as you get a good run through 1 and up to 3, like you're pretty good. So Lando did a good job. I think he went somewhere around here between 8 and 9. So yep, that's in my zone and happy with that. Now, a little bit to talk about with the Piastri versus Norris little ding-dong that went on for quite a few laps. Like I say, we were lucky to get this ding-dong. Grateful for McLaren for letting them race, but it did kind of get called off a little bit in the strategy. I'll talk to that in a minute. So in this situation, like I thought Lando did a good start, converted pole into the lead, tick, 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 did everything good. As the lap started to unfold, I thought Lando was driving really poorly, really scrappily. He wasn't making apexes at turn 6, and that was the key aero wash corner that Oscar could avoid. Went deep a few times at turn 4, and I think at turn 1 as well, he was always struggling to just get through turn 1 cleanly as well. We've seen all weekend, if you've been following the channel, you know, like the issues that they were having breaking into turn 1 on the exit of turn 1 with the tailwind. In FP3, it was on the entry to turn 1. So a bunch of issues surrounding turn 1. I think Lando was susceptible there as well. But I think the big story, just I know I'm talking to the track map here, turn 1 over here, and Lando deep at turn 4. I think the biggest story was these two corners. Why? Because they're the longest on the track. So that's turn 6 and turn 7. And I think Oscar was doing a really good job at an early turn in to try to avoid the aero wash from Lando, number 1, and just protect his front tires and meet with the apex of turn 6, something which Lando struggled to do. It's at this point now I want to differentiate to you guys what is the difference between a normal conventional line, an early turn in line, and a tight line as well. So let me draw that out for you guys now. All right, so this is turn 6, and if I just kick off and draw maybe what Lando was doing in orange or trying to do, it was similar to what he was trying to do in qualifying, pretty much coming across to meet with this point here. That is the widest entry point. There's actually a curb that runs across here called an entry curb, and Lando is pretty much trying to meet with that. And the idea is that if you've got grip and you've got downforce and if you've got speed and the car is light and, you know, good, happy days and it's cool conditions and so on, you can carry speed in from that position and you're all good, away you go. The problem was in the race, you know, you're on full tanks of fuel, the tires are hard. Lando couldn't actually meet with the apex at turn 6 from that position. So what Oscar was doing was something similar but different. Let's draw Oscar in green, pretty much following Lando the whole way to this entry point, finding this entry point here, but driving what we call an early turn in. And I'll just write that in green for you guys here. And the early turn in just basically says, I want to dive into this corner and take the apex early. And I'm not so focused on my exit speed. I just want to make sure I meet with the apex and turn in earlier. So that's one technique. But I always feel like regular viewers of the channel will know my most preferred technique is the tight line. The tight line says that you're not going to meet with that entry position. You're pretty much going to come through and then dive into the corner like that. So you are a car width and a step inside of the usual racing line. I didn't see Oscar Piastri driving tight lines, but I did see him turning in slightly earlier to try to meet with the apex. Now, this was a weakness for Lando, and it's not the first time that we've seen this, guys. I saw this in 2024 in Austin at turn 8. He came out behind Max Verstappen on a fresher set of tires. I think he had a 6 or 7 lap tire offset. And Lando couldn't get in there into turn 8 with the dirty air of Max, and he couldn't find a solution there either, because I think his entry position into turn 8 was like I said, meeting that furthest away to carry the most speed in. And that's a good way to damage and overload the outside tires of the car. That's the outside front and outside rear. I'll bring up a picture now that shows you guys, demonstrates exactly Lando's entry position in that race versus a tight line. So Lando's entry position into turn 8 in Austin was here, and this was on his pole lap. So the left front up against this white line here, trying to sweep into turn 8 from there. And in the race, he had Max in front of him here, and it just wasn't working because with the dirty air from Max in front, plus what he's asking from the car to be able to turn in from that position, it's not going to work. So I like the early turn in for me, like what Oscar was doing. I don't normally like to think things get confusing when you start to try early turn ins. What I like and I love and I would preach is the tight line. Don't turn in from that position, turn in from a step inside. So who was my example there? It was Franco Colapinto. You can see that he's turning into this corner from a completely different position, from a more mid-track, tighter position. Now that's what Lando needed to do in that race. And that's how he could have taken the lead and won that race against Max. But he wasn't aware of that technique at that time. And he's struggling with something similar here today in the race lead, trying to get in from that position. It's too wide. Now have a look at the steering angles if you can. And what you should notice is that this is exactly the same point in time. And Lando's got more steering on to try to get into that corner. And Franco is just like really delicate on the steering. And the result of it all is that the front left tire has to undergo less strain, less load. And in some of these long corners, it just doesn't overheat as much throughout the corner. Remember, these corners go on for about 4 or 5 seconds. So it means you're not overheating it, you're not sliding it, and lap on lap, that makes a massive difference. So I think that was the story of the first couple of laps, was that Lando turning in from a wide position, Oscar turning in a little bit earlier, not necessarily from a tighter position, just turning in, initiating the steering wheel earlier in order to meet turn 6. So that's how he was able to look after his front tires, stay out of the turbulent air, and start to mount an attack on Lando Norris. Now, here are some of the pictures that show you that. Again, you can see here, this is onboard Oscar on lap 10. You can see him turning in early, claiming an early apex, meeting with the corner curb very early. And Lando's trying to meet the apex further around, but just can't ever get there. There's another example I want to show you on lap 15. Here it is here, and same sort of thing. This is a few meters further around. This is good job by Oscar to meet with this apex. And again, you see Lando driving the like longer way around, not actually meeting with the apex. So I think that's a weakness in Lando's game, like in long corners. Not sure what it is. And it falls under the category of driver coaching, guys. An engineer is not going to be able to necessarily solve for this. Although I think Will's engineer did a good job of highlighting this and pointing it out. And I think he comes on the radio and says, there's an opportunity to make turn 6 or something along those lines. So yes, I think someone's seen that somewhere, that Lando's not hitting the apex lap on lap on lap at turn 6, basically saying there's an opportunity to meet the apex at turn 6. But I think the how and the why is probably missing as well. The tight line is something that not many drivers would know about. I think Charles and Lewis are probably the only two that I've ever seen, or Franco as well, I must mention, in Austin, demonstrate a tight line. Oscar here demonstrating an earlier turn into the corner, which is like, yeah, broadly speaking, like if I'm talking in broad strokes, a similar sort of thing. But yeah, I think tight line is another step more powerful. So that's a small like extra thing that Oscar could have done, is just turn in from a tighter position. And nevertheless, that was the reason why he was able to mount an attack in the first place. Now, look, I thought there were a few opportunities that Oscar could have maybe had a crack at some point. Lap 15, I think down the pitch straight looked close. Lap 15 into turn 4 again looked close. Was it close enough? Would Max have gone for a lunge? Yeah, I can't help but feel like someone a little bit, like, you got to remember, Oscar's very sensible, very mature. He's playing the points game. He's playing the percentage game. From that standpoint, like, respect, tick to Oscar. That's probably the correct thing to do. I just can't help but feel if that was a Max or someone, there would have been a dive in there somewhere, and there would have been a confrontation at some point. I know Oscar did get close down at turn 4 and had that lockup. That was kind of a half chance. But I don't know, let me know if you guys agree in the comments. Like, would a Max or someone a little bit more tenacious have made a lunge somewhere? I just can't help but feel Max would have let that opportunity slide, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think it was fine from Oscar. He was looking after his tires. He was applying pressure, mounting a challenge. Actually, we saw, I think it was lap 14 or 15 as well, Lando go off in the last corner. So he was definitely starting to strangle Lando and apply pressure. And I think that might have been his strategy. It's just, we know Lando can only take so much pressure. And I think that may have been Oscar's strategy to just chip away. But then, time is running out. You're in the dirty air. Your front tires are going. Again, I'm in two minds here because I know Oscar did a good job, and that all goes without saying. I just wonder, like, if it was a Max or someone, would they have just? You got to remember at this point, right? Max is out of the race, and this is the championship battle. It's Oscar and it's Lando, and they're fighting for the win and the lead. And like you guys saw, like Rosberg Hamilton, for example, Rosberg would have been a good example of this. And that's exactly what I'm referring to. Rosberg would have had a dive. Do you know what I mean? Just because this is it. This is those once in a lifetime opportunities for a championship with Max out of the way for a race win, when you can pretty much just go for a dive risk free, because the worst outcome is that both the cars are out, and that's fine. Best outcome is you take the lead. So I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud at this point. It's Oscar's P2 is fine, but I wonder if there was a slim chance of more at some point, maybe a dive somewhere. And look, it doesn't have to be a risky dive. You can still dive, you can still have a dive somewhere. And if you outbrake yourself, again, there's no loss, right? Maybe not turn 4 because there's a gravel trap at the end of it. But if you just have a dive somewhere like turn 3, there's plenty of space at the end of it. And if you do overshoot and go deep, it's not the end of the world. You can just reclaim P2. I think there was also a play in there that was still percentage, but worth the crack, if you know what I mean. Again, I'm thinking out loud at this point, but yeah, it was a good, intriguing battle nevertheless. Now, look, here's where it got interesting because the race strategy. Lando pits on lap 21, and it was a slow stop from McLaren. 3.1, I want to say, 3.1 to 3.5, something like that. And I think at this point, we were robbed of a full race proper. I think after this point, when Oscar came in Oscar stayed out, I think we were robbed of a proper race there. Because if that was any other car, any other team, you would 100% take that advantage and say, no, that's a slow stop. I'm coming in this lap, get a quick stop, and then, you're either back in DRS or you take the race lead. So yeah, that's where I think we were robbed. Now, I think what happened was McLaren saw it as a slow stop, and they probably said, we can't pit Oscar now because Lando's not going to be happy. And I think at this point, McLaren don't want to get involved or don't want their team to get involved with the racing. They want the racing to be the racing and the strategy to be the strategy, and no kind of, we're talking about like Hungary last year, no kind of interference with the strategy is their philosophy. So I think that's why they left Oscar out. Now they masked it. What's his name? Tom, I think Oscar's engineer. He masked it under the gaze of, oh, let's see what pace you have now for a few laps in clean air. And Oscar's like, mate, I've got that flat spot from the lockup. Don't forget. What do you think my pace is going to be? Obviously, it's not going to be good. And I think had Oscar known that Lando had a slow stop, and once he finds out after the race that Lando had a slow stop, he's not going to be very happy. He's going to be like, Tom, why didn't you call me in, man? But I get it. There's much higher. This decision would have come from someone like Randy that said, no, we're not going to let Lando suffer from the result of our bad pit stop. So yeah, that's why I think we were robbed of a good race. Now, had Oscar pitted, like I said, he's either on the attack again, or he's in DRS again, or he takes the race lead. Something through there. Now on lap 51, I think something similar happened with Ferrari. Lewis saying, "My tires are good. How many laps is left?" At that time, there was 20 laps to go, 19 laps to go. I think it was lap 50 or 51. Lewis like, "My tires are good. I want to stay out." The same sort of thing in Lewis's mind. Stay out. There's nothing to lose. You take P3. And then if Leclerc passes you back with new, fresher tires, you're back where you were in P4. So you've got to look at things as a driver and as a team in this way. Like, what is the worst case scenario if we just go for it? Like with Oscar attacking Lando, the absolute worst case scenario is you wipe each other out. For Oscar, that's not a problem. For Lando, that's a problem because he's behind in the championship. So in this particular case with Lewis, if he stays out and gets swallowed by Charles, it was only going to finish P4 anyway. So he's like, well, just leave me out. And then again, similar sort of thing, the team politics, Ricardo Adami's like, no, box. So Lewis will be filthy with that as well because, they're here to race. The guys want to race. Like they don't want to come to a racetrack and have it all be corporate politics and this has to happen for him. And do you know what I mean? It's all Lewis. I'm talking from Lewis's point of view. He'll just want to crack on and race, like compete. They just want to lock into battle. So yeah, he'll be disappointed with that as well. Now, look, I just want to touch on the Piastri Colapinto lapping incident at lap 55. I think, 100% it was Colapinto's fault. He didn't see him. He squeezed him off the track, 100%. I think from Oscar's point of view, he could have pulled out of that one. Again, you guys let me know what you think in the chat, but I think Yeah, there was a point at which you can clearly tell Franco is not going to do anything here. He's not letting Piastri through. He keeps moving over. But Piastri to go on the grass, I think Piastri's left that too late a little bit. Should have got out of that one earlier. I understand he's competing for the race win, but again, play percentages and that. Like, just get out of that one, Oscar. I don't think, at some point Franco is going to let you through. Again, the worst case scenario, Oscar's on the grass. He could have easily been in the wall. Who knows what could have been there? There could have been a big rock over there. There could have been like uneven ground. He could have broken a front wing. I think that was not worth Oscar staying there, even though he was 100% entitled to be there because he's lapping Franco. I think from Oscar's point of view, just get out of that one. That one's not worth fighting for. Now, a couple of strange radios, again, that highlight the race engineer driver dynamic or lack of synergy. On lap 62, Lando's like, mate, I need some pace. Give me some help. And then Will replies, yeah, it's in the high speed. And I'm there thinking, geez, man, these guys need help. Lando needs help. Like, he's fighting for a win here. He needs to know where he's losing time, where, why, and the solution as well. So he needs three things. And then Will barely provides the where. It's in the high speed. Well, the track's got a lot of high speed corners, mate. Like, give me more detail. Like, I'm talking from the driver's perspective now. High speed, what? Turn in, braking, entries, exits, minimum speed, like line, tight line, like high speed. Mate, I want a corner number, I want a reason, and I want a solution. They're the things I'm looking for. That was, not a quality radio message from Will. And then, a few laps later, Will comes over and I think it was turn 1 and turn 3 or turn 3 and turn 4. He's like, we need corner discipline. Again, as a racing driver, corner discipline means absolutely nothing. Like, what is corner discipline? Like, is that good driving or early braking or like conservative on some lines or modes or, again, that's not self-explanatory. Another one that comes to mind from McLaren when it starts to rain, they tell their drivers, oh, it's going to be class 2 to class 3 rain. Again, as a racing driver, that means absolutely nothing. Just tell me if it's going to be heavy rain or light rain. That's all I need to know. So if I can get a chance to have a look at the telemetry, I will, and I'll try to unpick what the hell high speed means. All right, so look, there is the telemetry available. I'm going to do my best for you guys because I don't actually know which laps are best to compare because they had a lot of traffic, remember. I'm just going to try to find 2 laps that were of similar lap time. When there was in the last stint, so on the mediums, I'm just trying to find 2 laps that look like they have similar lap time where Piastri was quicker than Norris. So there was a decent gap here where Piastri was much quicker and then a bit slower and then quicker again. So I'm going to go with those 2 laps. I'm going to go with this one, and this one, just because they look fairly close. There's not a big difference, suggesting no traffic, etc. I'm just going to see what this Lando, it's in the high speed, actually means. So we've got a 108.1 for Piastri. I've got a 108.3. Lap 58. Again, I don't know if there was traffic or, I'm not sure what's going on. Anyway, let's have a look at it. So turn 1, he's lost a bit of delta. So again, I spoke about this earlier. I said Lando just didn't look comfortable with turn 1 the whole time. I can see he's finding delta on the way in, but then losing on the way out. So the directive would be, Lando, just brake a little bit earlier and softer into turn 1, get on throttle earlier, and focus on your exits out of turn 1. That's something I could have told him straight away. You can see in orange, that's Lando in orange. This one here, the 1036, braking later than Oscar and finding a little bit of time in the first instance, but then losing it on the exit. So that's your first insight. That's what Will needs to be saying. There's another delta jump here. Let's try to understand what corner that is. Okay, it's the minimum speed at turn 6. So we know this problem already. Lando, you're turning in too late into turn 6. You need to play a tight line. Now, the drivers won't necessarily know. Like, if Will came on the radio and said, Lando, it's turn 6, you need to drive a tight line, Lando may or may not know what that is defined as I drew it out for you guys now. But that is the exact problem because they're pretty close on the entry to turn 6. I'm reading the delta as 0.02. And then they exit turn 6 and Oscar's nailed him nearly a tenth of a second. So that's your second insight. So Lando can easily gain 2/10 with a couple of changes. A softer, earlier braking into turn 1, focusing on a nice, clean, early throttle exit with the steering wheel nice and straight. and play a tight line into turn 6. There's another 10th of a second as well. So this is what Will needs to be saying. So that, mate, there's race engineers and there's race engineers. There's another area here where I can see Oscar's got carrying a lot more speed into turn 9 as well. Now this, I'm not sure why, but there is a decent delta jump here. Let's quantify that. So they go into turn 9. Yeah, it's worth about half a tenth actually through turn 9 as well. So that's probably not the end of the world. I'd be starting with it's turn 1, turn 6, and turn 9. I don't know what's happening in turn 9. Why Lando, if I just look at the throttle, I can see that Lando's giving it a later and harder throttle where Oscar's more progressive. Maybe he's got the car straighter and more stable. I'm not sure how Oscar's able to carry that speed in. Again, it normally comes back to line. So that would be my first check. I'm not sure on turn 8 because I didn't see the onboards. I wasn't following that corner as much, but I'm 100% sure on turn 1 and turn 6. And the reason I'm showing you this is this should have been the direction provided by Will, as opposed to it's in the high speed. Look, I hope you enjoyed my insights over the weekend. I've done my best to tell you as much as I possibly can with regards to the braking setup in uphill and downhill situations. How to drive the tight line, how to prevent the entry instability, how to prevent the exit instability, how to use the engine braking and braking tools and so on. So like, I hope you learned something from these videos. If you did, drop a comment in the comments section for me below. On Thursday, I think we're planning the live stream for Silverstone. So what are we going to be talking about Silverstone? We're very technical track. This track's not that technical, despite what everyone says. There's no technical corners here, maybe a hairpin if you want to class it as a hairpin. Whereas in Silverstone, we've got S's, we've got decreasing radius corners, we've got long corners of constant radius. The whole tight line thing is going to be a huge piece here, driving in dirty air. Strategy is going to be a big piece. I think there's some more opportunities for overtaking. The track is very wide as well. The only difference compared to Austria is it's fairly flat. Silverstone can also be windy. It's built on an airfield as well. Like it's an old runway, like airport, as I understand. So the wind direction, George Russell will be all over this, will be a big factor there as well. So I hope you can join me for the Thursday live stream. Again, leave a comment from me or a question on your way out and join the conversation, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.